It is my pleasure to introduce today's workshop presenter, Sharon Kenty, with her workshop, Speech Writing Made Easy. Now, the purpose of this workshop is to write a speech in 5 minutes with strong beginnings, memorable endings. Do you ever get stuck preparing a speech? Don't know what to talk about? Don't know where to begin or how to craft your message? In this workshop, Sharon will show you some of the ideas about how to get started, how to build, and how to memorably create a captivating speech. Now welcome Sharon Kenty, Speech Writing Made Easy.
How to write a speech in 5 minutes? Can you really do that? Yes, you can. Today, I'll give you some steps about how you can take that germ of idea and make it into a good enough speech after we review the basic building blocks of a speech, of how to craft a speech. And I'll let you in on a real easy technique on how you can write a speech in 5 minutes. This is going to be interactive, so get something to write with and be prepared to unmute at a moment's notice if you have a comment. So pencils, writing material, brain turned on. Here we go. A speech needs a skeleton before it can stand up. The basics of a speech are you have an opening, obviously, which you introduce the premise of what this is about. What's your message? Your body has 3 sections. Actually, the human body has more than 3, but the body of the speech has 3 sections with a call to action, and your closing wraps up around and refers to the opening. Again, those are the basic parts of a speech outline. Think of it as a really tasty sandwich. The body is all of this delicious filling, and don't worry, no animals were harmed in the making of this sandwich. That is it's too good to believe tofu substitute. Anyway, and the opening and conclusion is a nice tasty bun. You want to make it appetizing for your audience. But what do we talk about? What the heck do we talk about? There are many ideas that you can keep a little notebook of just ideas of, like if you're driving in traffic, you see something extraordinary. There's a topic for a speech. Or a funny situation, there's a topic for a speech. It can be anything. So if you have that little list of ideas, you can pick a speech at a moment's notice, a topic. But what you want to talk about, of course, is something you know about, obviously. And something that you're passionate about as well. Something that is relevant to the audience and interesting to the audience. And in the middle here is your sweet spot. You talking about something you know about, you're passionate about, and something that's relevant to the audience. For instance, you might not want to talk about breastfeeding to a conclave of engineers. So remember, knowing your audience is a key importance too. We have 6 easy steps for writing a speech in 5 minutes. This might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but I'll give you time. Pick your topic. That's the first step. Pick your topic. Think about a speech that you have been ruminating about for a while. Get your topic. Write that down. What is your topic today? And if you have a list of topics, you already have something ready to hand that you will be writing about. We're going to be writing a speech today. After you pick your topic, write 3 aspects about that subject. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. The next part of this exercise is to expand on each one of those points with a story, an anecdote, a quote, or data, or a combination of all 3. Either or. Expound on each one of those points. You can relate a story, a quote about that subject, or share data. This is your supporting material. I'll give you a few more moments to fill in the blanks there. And when you're doing this, write this minute. You don't need to write it out word for word, but some kind of supporting material for each one of those aspects of your topic. Now here comes the fun part. Write your conclusion. What is the ending? Now that you know what you've written about, when you're writing a speech, write this out word for word and memorize it so you can end with it strongly. The conclusion also includes a call to action. What do you want the audience to do, think, or say as a result of hearing your message? Or what do you want them to understand as a result of hearing your message? Conclusion, wrap it up. After you've written a conclusion, it's counterproductive, counterintuitive, but yeah, now you write the beginning. How are you going to hook your audience? And we'll get into that in a little bit too. We'll flesh out some of these ideas. Write your beginning with a strong hook. Tell us what you're going to be telling us. Introduce your theme, your premise. Introduce the topic and the core message I'm going to be talking to you about. And you should be able to express this core message clearly in a single sentence. What are we missing? The title. Now that you know what your message is and what you've written about and how you're going to hook them even further by titling it with something interesting like clickbait, something that will grab the attention even before you start speaking. The interesting title. And speaker introductions are important as well. We'll be getting into a little bit more in depth on creating interesting titles and speaker introductions after we go through these basics. So basically, 6 easy steps. Pick your topic, something that you are passionate about, you know about, and something that's going to be interesting and relevant to the audience. List 3 aspects of that subject. Flesh them out with supporting material, stories, anecdotes, data. Then write the conclusion, end it, and you're going to be referring back to the beginning too, which you're going to write at the end. Does that make sense? Write the beginning at the end, because now you know what you have written about. Then you title it. You never have an excuse for not having a speech ready. With those 6 easy steps, you can prepare a speech that's good enough in 5 minutes. When you use this 5-minute formula, it produces a good enough speech. Now you can go refine it and fill in the details, craft a strong beginning, a strong, memorable ending, wrap it up by referring to the beginning. When you do this good enough speech over and over and over, you'll get better. And this can develop into a much better speech that gets your message across more effectively in a structured, coherent way. Structured and coherent. Now, hyperbole and oversimplicity aside, these steps will definitely guide you in crafting a good enough speech that you can enhance it into an excellent speech. The next part of this presentation will be, well, how do you begin the speech? And then we'll get into how do we end the speech memorably. I'm going to invite some of you to share your opening statements that you have written in your skeleton of a speech just now. I'll teach you how, or I'll share with you how you can begin a speech with power and punch, and then we'll get into how you end it so people will remember it. I'll give you the do's and don'ts of beginning a speech and the do's and don'ts of concluding a speech. So remember, get your finger poised over your mute button. And when you want to share, I will call on you, or you can just shout out, don't be shy, to share what you've written as your very first thing that comes out of your mouth. And remember, first impressions are lasting. You never get a second chance to create a good first impression. So in this skeleton speech, I invite you to share what your first words will be. Richard, do you have something to share with us? Your mic is off.
Sorry, I was on something, I just got called away. So I do have a comment, and it was to do my last speech that I gave last Tuesday night. And my opening was, how far do we go? And it was a wink, wink, and it got people's attention because they thought, some of them had dirty minds. Actually, what it was to do with waste reduction and garbage reduction. But it caught their attention right off the bat.
There you go. That is an excellent beginning. You ask a question that, and it's ambiguous enough that people are curious. What are you going to be talking about next? So I invite, let's see. I'm going to invite Maureen. What is the very first thing you're going to say about your speech that you just wrote in 5 minutes or 6 minutes?
Thank you for the opportunity, Sharon. Gardening isn't all about digging in the dirt and finding worms. It's the fulfillment of growing your own food while enjoying the sunshine.
All right. And you know what? That can also be an effective ending. Now, how about consider this? Do you like to get your hands dirty? Do you like beautiful plants and growing your own vegetables? And then you can say, and that, yeah, get the audience to, yeah, I do. You know, so you're getting the audience on board and how it's going to relate to them. And then you can say, gardening is not just about blah, blah, blah. So consider that too. You can open with a question, a quote, a startling fact, or the beginning of a story, once upon a time, or I'll never forget. And one of the most memorable endings that I like to refer to is Edward Bulwer Lytton. It was a dark and stormy night.
Yeah.
Think about drama, opening with drama. I want to invite Merrilee next. What is the first thing that what is your opening statement in this speech that you just wrote?
I'm at a loss here because I didn't write an opening statement. Are you challenged by different personalities? We all have different needs, different perspectives, different goals. How can we understand each other? Listen more, that's what I heard from Maureen.
Aha. There, I heard rhetorical questions by introducing the subject with rhetorical questions. And when you use rhetorical questions, after you ask them, give a pause, just a few beats, just enough time for the audience to answer that question in their own minds. So rhetorical questions are also a way to open up and just start, explaining or introducing your topic. That is, rhetorical questions are also good transitions from one part of your speech to the next. Yes, that's a good technique. Joyce, have you a strong opening to share with us?
Have you ever had an embarrassing moment? Let me share one of mine.
Ah, yes. Asking the audience if they have ever experienced something that you're going to be talking about, that gets them on board pretty quickly. And that was one of the most common opening statements that I have heard in speeches. And it's popular because it's quite effective as well. And I like to hear drama in the opening statements as well. Who has written a dramatic opening to their speech? I saw a raise hand. A dramatic opening.
I'm not sure if it's dramatic, but I'm still scratching at it. The bubble burst. It was messy. And this is the part I'm struggling with because it was a curious result. The bubble burst. It was messy and a curious result. And it's a speech and an idea that I've been fighting with for years now,
Hmm.
but your structure kind of gave me, yeah, I outlined it again, which has given me something to play with. So
Okay.
that's it, 3
good.
sentences.
The bubble burst. Yes. And sometimes short sentences, 3 short sentences have a great impact as well, because you're saying it concisely. And each sentence is leading to the next. So you're really baiting us. You're really priming us for, oh, what is he going to say next?
Well, and the concept I'm playing with is just how to engage with curiosity when it comes to struggles. So that's that.
Yeah, sometimes that's hard to do with an abstract concept. And when you have an abstract subject, the best way, I think, to handle that is stories, metaphors, and examples, similes, and personal stories. Aesop was good at that too. The quote beginning. Did somebody write a quote at the beginning? An example of that, I wrote a quote. I wrote a speech about procrastination. I opened it up with, Mark Twain says a procrastination is the art of keeping up with yesterday. And at the end, I used another quote of Mark Twain, a similar quote about procrastination, which is one of the techniques for closing that we'll get into in a little bit. So what else do you think we can open a speech with so that it grabs the audience's attention right away? Chie?
How about a body gesture?
Oh, that was Joyce. Yeah, okay. Such as?
Or something, using your hands and people are wondering what the heck you're doing.
Aha. Yeah, and then, yeah, you certainly got everybody's attention. And Chie, is that how you say your name?
Yes, correct. I usually start up the question throwing up the in the beginning. It's like more like a relevant topic, such as, oh, do you know how many members have a mentor? That's what I did on Thursday. Or like more relevant, like beginning. So how who is gonna be a speaker? Join the Toastmasters, like. Is a better speech, or who is think about better leadership are you looking for? Something like that.
Yes, another question. Not necessarily a rhetorical question, but a question that they actually have to answer by participating, raising your hand or nodding. When you see them smiling and nodding, then you know you've connected. So yeah, that's a good technique as well. What are some other ideas for an opening statement that will get the audience on board right away? Well, let's review what we have. A dramatic quote, a question, rhetorical questions, a gesture, and let me tell you a story. So those are effective openings. Now, remember, when you get up to the stage, whether it's a virtual stage or especially on a real live stage, what you want to do before you even start speaking is to stand there for a moment, gaze out over the audience, just a moment before you start speaking. Make sure you have everybody's attention. And what I like to do in a live audience is that when I'm looking at the audience before I start speaking, I make sure that everybody is looking, and the last person that I notice that is looking up at me, the very last person that puts their attention on me, I will direct my opening statement to them. directly, looking in their eye directly. The very last person that pays attention, that shows me, their eye, the last person that eyes on me, I will say my opening statement directly to that person. I spent my honeymoon in the back of a U-Haul truck. And then you can continue looking at the people and then start with your speech. So remember, pause and get the audience's attention and just start right in with your message. I've heard a lot of speeches that, and here's where the speaker introduction comes in. They kind of wander in. Thank you for letting me be here. I was thinking about doing this speech and I wanted to talk about blah, 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 blah. And, 3 or 4 sentences just explaining themselves, you're going to lose the audience right away. And that brings me to the importance of a good speaker introduction and the title as well. So starting strongly will get the audience on board. And now that you've delivered your speech, it's time to end it. How do you conclude a speech? Mark Twain said, the best way to end a speech is to stop talking. And what I heard today from Maureen was she summarized, her ending summarized with a call to action or understanding and wrapped up what the message was. So that's one way to end your speech. You want to make sure that audiences remember the very last thing that you say. So make it count. You're working up to a conclusion. They will remember the very last thing you say. And don't dilute the message with any extraneous words. And I will, let's see, how do we end our speeches with a bang? Let's have some fireworks. Remember the structure of the beginning, the 3 points, and the conclusion, the call to action, and the closing, wrapping it around. Whatever you mentioned, this whole speech is a bunch of things wrapped up. You want to wrap it up nicely with a bow by summarizing what you just said. The last words will crystallize your thoughts. They galvanize your message and they mobilize your audience. End your speech with the same thing that you started with. You want to appeal to their logic, their emotions, and their ethics and their beliefs. You can repeat the title and then stop talking. You can refer back to your opening anecdote or quote. You can challenge them to do something. This is your call to action. Therefore, I challenge you to, or I invite you, this is similar too. I invite you to think about doing blah, blah, blah. Let's do it. So you can invite them, challenge them, or you can end with a quote. The ending quote that I used for my procrastination speech was similar to the opening quote. And it was, why put off today what you can do the day after tomorrow? That's another Mark Twain close. Or you can repeat a foundation phrase when you look at the World Championship of Public Speaking. They have a foundation phrase that is used throughout the speech. You can use that as your close. You can also say, congratulations for being here. Now go out into the world. This is like for a graduation speech or something. Now, how can we make the audience forget everything that you just said? Yeah. When you say thank you at the end of a speech, it takes away from the message. It dilutes the message. I'm a firm believer in just ending your message. It's a natural tendency to want to be polite and thank your audience for being there. If you absolutely have to say thank you, you can make it a full sentence. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And I know you had lots of other things to do, but I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it. A full sentence, if you have to absolutely say thank you. Remember that the people will remember the very first thing you say and the very last thing you say. So you can wrap it up with the same thing that you started with. That's the circular argument there. Wrap it up in a nice package. Any questions about memorable endings? Ray?
Just going back to that last point about thank you, and I've heard this lots of times, don't end with a thank you. We thank you because you're speaking to us. What about saying, and I want to thank you for coming out and watching my presentation, for all the information I provided you, and I'll leave you with this point, rather than ending.
Yes, and I leave you with this point, yes.
With that final
Indeed.
sentence, which then, basically drops the attention, and then you're done. Thank you,
Yes.
bye-bye. No.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. And I was a judge at some speech contests recently for the Lions Club and the Rotary Club. They don't have speaker introductions. So they had to start with explaining their premise first. But almost every one of them ended with a thank you, and then thank you, and they left. And that left me with a disappointed air. If there was only one that the very last thing she said was the call to action. And I challenge you to blah, 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 whatever it was. If you are ever in a situation where the MC is not right there, see, in Toastmasters, when we end a speech, we're done, we pause, we turn to the officiant, whether in person or, and now I hand it back to the Madam Chair or Mr. Toastmaster. But when you're in a situation outside of Toastmasters in a venue that doesn't have an MC right handy to hand it off to, how do you end? How do you end? You can say your very last statement that you want them to remember, and then a gesture like a half bow with your arms open, so they know that they are done, and then stand up straight and then walk off the stage if there's nobody to hand over conduct to. So your ending sentence and a gesture. Think of it as a silent thank you. One of those nonverbal thank yous. Any questions or comments on memorable endings? Okay, titling your speech. How many of you have, we all have cell phones, yes, and your ringtone. What is your ringtone on your smartphone? Why does it matter? Well, back in the old days, when phones were attached to the wall, the sound of the telephone created a sense of excitement, anticipation that something was going to happen. Someone wanted to talk to me. And of course, nowadays, I get the feeling that the ringtone does the exact opposite, dread, but oh no, I have to talk about somebody. But either way, the title of your speech is an introduction to your communication. It can work both ways as the ringtone. You want to make it exciting, create a sense of excitement in your audience. Think clickbait. There's whole science behind clickbait of phrases and trigger words. It's studied and analyzed. You can even go online to find one of those automatic headline makers. But some examples I have here of some titles. Which would you be more inclined to listen to? How to brew a cup of coffee, or Morning's Best, brewing the drink of power? You see the difference there? Which one do you want to hear? Reasons to drink coffee, or 3 ways coffee improves your life? So you can take a mundane title, give it some spice, give it some drama, use some humor in it. And using that same coffee speech, brewing your future. That would amuse me. I'd be curious about what the speaker is going to say. I'm ready to go to a coffee brewing class. And another speech title idea is that if you're going to say about 5 ways or how to disassemble an engine, you can say, where is that spare part? Where did this screw come from? So a speech title will introduce your topic in a way that people want to listen to it. So use your imagination, get creative with your titles. If you go online and Google headline generator, there are a lot of them out there. Some are better than others. So check it out. You put in keywords of what your message is. So that's my spiel on titles. Now, the very first thing that a speaker, even before they get up to speak, they get introduced. Why is a speaker introduction? In this club, it sounds like you have a pretty good grasp on speaker introductions, how you craft a speaker introduction. The speaker introduction is sometimes as important as the speech itself. And most clubs that I'm in, it's the responsibility of the speaker to actually craft that. And why do you think a speaker introduction is so important? Anybody, just unmute and say why. Why is a speaker introduction important?
Provide some input into what the speaker wants you to think about
Yes.
when they get going.
Yes.
It provides a setting.
Yes. Gordon.
Credibility.
Credibility. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You've hit the three main objectives of a speaker introduction. Is the proper mindset. They are more likely to appreciate a speech if they are given some background information about the speaker and the topic to be discussed. And a skillful introduction will set the mood and set the tone as well. The speaker credibility. Why are you up here talking about this subject? So some kind of personal information that's relevant to your topic establishes your speaker's expertise and credibility. If your speech is about education, for instance, the introduction should inform the audience that the speaker has 3 school-aged children and a member of the local school board. That establishes credibility of why she's going to be talking about education. So when the importance of that strong start, remember, we don't kind of wander into the speech because that's been taken care of in your speaker introduction. You can set your own tone of how you want to be received. And I will put in the chat after our Q&A, I have a little worksheet on how you can craft a speaker introduction that you don't have to explain yourself or wander into your speech. You can just start talking. And it's an outline, but the bare minimums of the speaker's name, of course, your speech topic, the speech title, your speech assignment, what pathway project is it, the timing, the objectives, and the delivery time. So those are the bare minimums, but I'm going to put that document in the chat after we get finished here. Do we have questions, comments? Ray?
It's a thought that's been occurring to me since talking about speech titles. The two speech titles that you gave as examples could be, either one of them could be very excellent depending on the context of who the speaker is. A really boring speech title given to a speech delivered by Dave Chappelle would be very compelling, whereas a very interesting or complicated speech title given to somebody that with a slightly different framing might be more compelling. So I think the context of the speaker with the title also adds some flavor.
Yeah, that's true. And with a speech title, you want to make sure that you don't overpromise and underdeliver. There's a caveat there in getting too creative about your speech title. But I still like to use a little bit of creativity in speech titles. Maureen?
Yes, the little activity that you had us do right at the very beginning and pick your topic. I wrote down 3 topics because I couldn't think what I really wanted to talk about. And I found myself writing down some things that I haven't talked about before. So that was kind of interesting. And then I went, oh, gardening. And it made me then start thinking about why I enjoyed gardening. So I think sometimes we sit down with this idea, I've got to write about this, or I've got to tell the story, where maybe the very first thing you sit down is with that blank piece of paper, is you just start writing down a whole lot of things that you like. Or because you said, write about what you know. And I was then starting to think, okay, what do I know? Well, a little bit about gardening, a little bit about golf, a little bit about other things. And that got me off in a whole new different direction. So I think just challenging us to throw something down on paper and get going gets over that hesitation of trying to come up with a title or trying to come up with all of this other stuff, is just get some ideas down there. So
that, and they have an idea for the next couple of speeches. You have enough ideas on your list to fill the whole 5 paths, the whole 5 levels. So yeah, anytime you get a germ of an idea for a speech, jot it down. But for this exercise, I wanted you to focus on one thing, so that one idea, so that you can think about 3 aspects of it, fill that in. And the outline that I gave you seems counterintuitive, writing it backwards with writing your beginning at the end. But once you know what you're going to be talking about, then you can write a really strong beginning to tell us what you're going to tell us.
Yeah.
With this outline and this information, there was a lot to absorb. You can ask Ray for the recording. And I challenge you, try this formula the next time you write a speech. And I think you will find it a lot easier. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for watching this video on the Toastmasters District 96 YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel to watch replays of our volunteer-run workshops, contests, and other events that are happening in our district. Like this video to show your appreciation for the volunteers who work hard to run these events. And remember, we are all volunteers. Thank you.